Hi everybody, it's Tatiana, and today I'm coming to do a book review, and I am reviewing The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is a adult fantasy novel that is the story of the main character, quote, in his own words. It is him telling his story to the chronicler who has been searching for him so that he can write down his story and preserve the legend that is, quote, for others to be able to read. Because it is, quote, telling his own story, I have to say one of the things that gave me some mental / emotional relief while I was reading this is because it's, quote, telling his story in his own words. So because it's him telling his story, you know you're going to read this trilogy, and at the end of the trilogy, quote is still there. I have not read, the third book doesn't even have a release date yet, and I don't even own the second book yet, so I have no idea what's going to happen, but because it says my name is, quote, on the back, and it states in the synopsis that it's him telling his own story, I can draw the conclusion that come the end of this trilogy, quote is still alive. So that relieves a lot of pressure for me, because when I get into fantasy books, I truly do get immersed and that's part of the fun of reading a fantasy novel. And so just to know, even with everything that he goes through, and as jarring as some of the things will be in the story, whatever happens, he's still living at the end. So what you do, though, what you are going to learn is why he is where he is at this point in his life. As he starts to tell his story, he begins with him as a child and the story of his family and how he gets from being a child who is an observer and sometimes a participator in a lot of the things that take place with his family to this legend, the beginning of the stories of how he becomes this legend that he is today and how he really makes a name for himself. Quoth is a very likable character. A lot of times in the story, while you're reading the story, even as you get to understand who he is and where he is in his life, you forget his age. It's said quite a few times in the story that he is wise beyond his years or has great knowledge. He's supposed to be a genius. And you really do forget as you're reading how old he is actually supposed to be. But in some cases in the story, he is older or wiser than his years, and other times you're shaking your head like, you just dummy. You dummy. Him being wise does not prevent him or protect him from making some very stupid decisions and dealing with the ramifications of those decisions. The rest of the characters in the story are very well put together. There was a lot that went into the making of this series. There are very few characters who are one-dimensional. They, even the villains or the people who you just want to hate, you know that there's more to the story than what you're really getting. But of course, because you're only getting it from close perspective, then you don't know really what the deal is with them. But just because of where the timing is supposed to be on this whole thing, nobody is just one-dimensional. But you do have the group of people that Quoth surrounds himself with as a child, where you have his friends who are, one is the comic relief and one is just dry humor. You have, once he gets into school, the no-nonsense teacher. You have the asshole teacher that who hates you and you just want to hate and you don't have a hard time hating. And then you have those who are supportive of you and are willing to help you. One of the things that I enjoy about fantasy novels is when you get novels that have maps on them. I think I've said this before in a book that I read before. I don't remember what. I think it was in Siege and Storm, because there's a map. And I love looking at maps for those particular stories, just to see how the terrain is, and to be able to map out where the main character takes himself as he is going through his story. There is no map in this book, however, it's described so well that I could make out in my mind, and I am not I am not good with geography at all. At all. My sister is awesome. I suck at it. And it's written so well, and the places and how he gets from one place to another is described so well that I can put together basically what the town or the cities that he's traveling between, what they look like and what the road looks like to get there. I can pretty much put that together and then kind of try and paste the whole picture together. That was fun for my mind. Another thing that I liked about this story is that the names make sense. One thing that can be so annoying when reading a fantasy novel is it's like the author put all of their work into making the names of the characters and the towns that they go to the most difficult names to read, much less pronounce. And sometimes you're looking at it and you're trying to figure out if you're reading Welsh. And if you've ever read Welsh or looked at a Welsh word and tried to understand how to first say it and then pronounce it and what the heck it means, you understand what I'm saying. And that can be very, very annoying. That's not the case in this book. The names make sense. Even the ones that as you're reading, you find out that you may have been pronouncing them incorrectly in your head, it's still fine. There are not 15 consonants in a person's name or the city or the name of a street. It's a name, and it looks like a damn name. And that was just great to me. That annoys me in other stories, if you can't tell. Also, when he gets to the school and to the university, I like the way that the magic is set forth. It's not necessarily 100% different, but it's just more interesting to read, and it's not just you go to school to learn magic and then you become this great magician. You go to school, you learn a lot of things, and their form of magic is one of the things that you can learn, and you either excel at it or you're good at it or you're not. But there's a scientific edge to it that's just enjoyable to read and to learn why some things work and some things don't, the ramifications if you don't do it correctly or you use the wrong thing, and all of that, and keeping all of that in line with using it properly so that you don't stress yourself out or take away all of your strength or your life. So yeah, all of those put together, I gave this novel 5 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is what I have been looking for since I read The Warded Man, and I was looking for another fantasy novel that was set in, its own world without all of the technology and everything of today. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this book. If you haven't read it, which there are very few people who haven't, I am one of the few, but if you have not read it yet, I would definitely suggest reading it. Once you get into it, you are sucked into it, and it flies. It flies by. I am so upset that I don't have the second volume to this series. It is out. I need to go ahead and buy it. I'm also upset because since I bought The Name of the Wind in the mass market paperback, I will be buying The Wise Man's Fear in the mass market paperback. I kind of wish I bought the bigger novel. I think it's the trade paperback size novel, because it's just a lot to hold as you're reading it at 720 something pages for this mass market paperback. But I want them all to be the same size, and I'm sure they're not buying this again. And I bought this because the mass market paperback was cheaper, and I was going for quantity versus quality when I had this book haul. So that's all that I have for today, and I hope you all have a good weekend whenever you see this video. Peace out.